Welcome to Our Girl Relationships. On this channel, we talk about problems people face in their day-to-day life. Let's start with the video.
I am a male 29 and I've been married to my wife F25 for about 3 years now. My wife is a stunning woman, a 10 out of 10 on my scale. The type of beauty that made her noticeable even in the middle of a crowd. Back when we were still friends, other guys were all over her, but she was somehow into a loser such as me. I, for one, am not ashamed to admit that she is way out of my league. But hey, good for me, I guess. When we started dating, I made sure to introduce her to my family, and especially my younger sister, because I had hoped they would become good friends with each other. My sister, who was 16 at the time, didn't welcome my girlfriend with open arms. I remember vividly, during their first encounter, my girlfriend was trying really hard to make conversation with her, but she was met with total disinterest on the other part. My sister had decided to completely ignore her. Because I didn't want my girlfriend to be upset, I told her that it was normal for young girls to act coldly with their brother's significant other. I also explained to her that my sister and I were really close, and that she probably just feared she might take me away from her. There was some truth in my words. I truly believe that it was only a matter of time before they actually got along with each other. I mean, she was still young, and it's completely normal for girls her age to still behave like brats. I was sure that she was just going through her teen angst era. Unfortunately, my sister made sure to prove me wrong over and over again. Getting married and becoming an official member of my family resulted in increased encounters between my wife and sister. It also meant many more occasions for my sister to show me how much she disliked my wife and how much of an asshole she could be. During our family gatherings or parties, people would often compliment my wife. As I mentioned before, my wife easily caught the eye, and it was no surprise when everyone just naturally levitated towards her. Everyone except for one person, my sister, who always seemed to be the exception. She would use every opportunity she got to make sure that my wife knew she despised her. She would either tell her that her hair looked terrible that day, or that her makeup was cakey, or even that her outfits were vulgar. Now I know my wife is not a saint, but she somehow managed to keep her cool each time my sister tried to attack her. She figured the stupid game she was playing and refused to fall for her silly traps. I soon realized that there was no hope for their relationship to improve, but still, I never expected my sister would be childish enough not to invite my wife to her wedding. I still had faith my sister would be above that. Unfortunately for me, it wasn't the case. After she announced her plan to get married, my sister then came up to me and told me that she would love to have me at her wedding at one condition. My eyes narrowed in suspicion at her last sentence. What could have been so important of a condition that she would rather not have me at her wedding if it wasn't met? I told her to tell me what it was, and she casually answered that she didn't want my wife to attend her wedding. I started laughing at first, because I thought she was pulling a prank on me. But the expression on her face told me otherwise. She stood calmly in front of me, her arms crossed in front of her chest, and patiently waited for me to realize that it wasn't a joke. I stared at my parents in disbelief. I was begging slightly for one of them to react somehow, but they didn't. I then asked my sister for more time if she was being serious. She just smiled at me softly and reiterated her answer. Trying to be the bigger person, I didn't want to get mad at her. So instead, I asked her if my wife did anything to her that would piss her off to the point of not wanting her to attend her wedding. She sighed in annoyance, then proceeded to explain herself. According to my sister, my wife was an attention seeker. And each time they met, my wife would go out of her way to steal the spotlight from my sister. That she would dress in inappropriate ways on purpose to get everyone's eyes on her. And since that was her special day, she didn't want anyone else to steal her thunder. I truly don't know what I expected, but it was certainly not that. I felt blood rush through my veins. As I stood silent in disbelief, I heard my mom approaching me from behind. She calmly put her hand on my shoulder and said that there was nothing I could do about it. That if my sister decided to uninvite my wife, it was her decision and hers only. I told my mother that she should try and talk some sense into her daughter instead of just complying with whatever she says like she always did. My words seemed to only irritate her more and led her to completely side with my sister. She then told me that I had to make a decision. I either attend my sister's wedding or I go back to my place and stay with my wife. I knew that it was useless to ask for my father's help because he was a total girl dad. He cherished my sister more than me when we were kids, and he would always side with her no matter the issue. Once I understood that arguing with them would take me nowhere, I took my stuff and left them without a word. The most painful part was to tell my wife none of us would be able to attend my sister's wedding because she was childish and immature. To my surprise, my wife didn't seem to be affected by my recollection of the events. She even said that it was to be expected from my sister and that this was not a subject we should dwell on. After my sister's wedding, I decided to take some distance from my family to gather my thoughts and rethink our relationships. I don't think I'm ready to forgive my mother anytime soon though, because even if my sister's attitude was the root of the problem, I still expected my mother to defend me. But as they say, expectations only lead to disappointment. So what do you guys think? Should I have gone to my sister's wedding despite her not having my wife invited? Not the a-hole. First of all, I'm sorry that you've been put between a rock and a hard place. No matter what anyone thinks or says, getting in a quarrel with a sibling is never an easy thing to experience. As a big brother to a sister myself, I can't imagine cutting her off of my life because of a mistake she made. On the other hand, you can't abandon your wife either. It's clear that your wife had nothing to do with how your sister treats her, so not standing by her side would probably affect your relationship severely. For my part, I think that you made the wisest choice by not attending your sister's wedding because she needs to understand that what she did is not something that should be tolerated. Try to talk it out with your sister, and I hope that things get better for you. Not the a-hole. It's pretty common for sisters to feel jealous towards their brother's partners. Imagine growing up with someone and having them all for yourself your whole life, to finally have someone else take them away from you. Of course, I'm not siding with your sister. I'm just stating that I understand where she comes from. Still, this doesn't excuse the poor behavior she displayed with your wife, and not inviting her to her wedding over such a lame reason is definitely the cherry on top. If I were you, I'd put an ultimatum and ask my sister to come and apologize to my wife, or I'd cut her off from my life for good. Not the a-hole. I think it's obvious who's in the wrong here. Not only did your sister treat your wife like shiz since day one, and this for no apparent reason other than a stupid brother complex, she also made her feel excluded and unwanted from family affairs. My advice to you would be to get all the family involved and not only your parents, since they seem to be biased. Try to talk to your cousins or aunts so that they pressure your sister into apologizing at the very least. Next story. So for context, I'm a single working from home mom, so I spend a majority of my afternoon on the PC as a medical transcriptionist, so I can't keep a really close eye on my son when I'm working. My sister, his aunt, doesn't do anything during the day, so I usually rely on her to keep an eye on him. She believes that unless she's being paid to babysit, she doesn't really take it seriously. On top of that, I'm pretty much lucky if she wakes up before 2 p.m., so it's not exactly a great system in terms of supervision. Normally, I don't mind, but given his overabundance of energy and curiosity, he gets into everything. Sometimes I manage to catch him before he can make a mess, but other times he's pretty crafty and manages to get into things he shouldn't. Dirty laundry basket, bathroom closet, cabinets in the office, and most recently, unattended purses. Yesterday, my son had gotten into his aunt's purse and took everything out before I could notice. Money, cards, Altoids, Band-Aids, makeup, all over the floor. Needless to say, she was pretty upset and got onto him for getting into things he shouldn't. So far, things are okay, But then she gets onto me for not keeping an eye on him and for letting him go through her stuff. But I kinda chalk it up to the fact that she just woke up. Obviously, I am partly responsible, but if I'm working and she's perfectly capable of watching him, or at the very least capable of putting her purse away in her room and not leaving it out on the living room floor, I feel she should be somewhat responsible. I retort back that she shouldn't be keeping valuables on the floor like that, and explain that I can't keep an eye on him 24/7. We get into a small argument, and I tell her that if she can't put her stuff away, I can't be bothered to stop him. So fast forward to this morning, her purse is once again on the living room floor by the couch. And this time I do catch him in the act of taking everything out, but remembering yesterday's spat, I just let him. $30 worth of eyeliner and mascara all over his clothes and face and on the floor. Coins thrown out, and a few Target and fast food receipts are being torn to shreds. Sure, I could have stepped in and stopped him, but I figure it's on her this time for not making the effort to put her purse up in her room after yesterday. Not to mention he managed to use all the bandages this time, leaving only the wrappers. He is my son, so he's my responsibility, but I don't feel like I'm responsible for her belongings if she won't put them up or keep an eye out to make sure he's not getting into them. Am I the a-hole for letting him dig through her belongings? Quick FAQ, so I don't have to answer the same questions. As far as my sister goes, she's not working or in school yet. It's my house. She's living with me until she can get her own place. My son does go to daycare while I work, but due to a recent incident, his teacher tested positive and exposed other staff unknowingly. He's at home. The living room is baby-proofed and it's right next to the office where I work, so I have him in view from the door. My sister doesn't carry dangerous weapons, and I already knew that there wasn't anything hazardous. Part of my job is to listen to medical training videos and disclaimers and transcribe them, proofread lectures and transcripts, and translate shorthand for readers. The house is baby-proof, but the living room is the safest place for him. I don't obligate her to watch my son for free, but we haven't really discussed pay since this was a pretty sudden change in routine. Update. So we discussed the living situation and came to a few agreements. She has the option of paying one bill a month or to contribute a little more around the house in order to continue staying here rent-free. Until the daycare opens again, she will watch him during the day at the rate of $18 per hour, if she chooses to start paying a bill. If not, it'll be $12 per hour, and at the most, it'll be 4 hours a day. At the very least, that way she can pay for her GED classes or her own groceries. If he gets into her stuff again, I'm responsible for compensating her for damages. If I had an emergency crop up, or I'm unable to give her at least an hour notice, there's going to be a fee to be decided. I have to pay her for the makeup and damages. Altogether, it came down to $85. I'm going to ask about switching to night hours so I can spend more time with my son. As for work or school, it's up to her when or if she wants to start. There's not really much I can do, and it's technically not my business. She apologized for not picking up her slack lately, and I apologized for being a bad example of how to handle situations between people for my son, as well as allowing him to intrude her privacy and destroy her items. So far, we're on good terms once again. You're the a-hole. Your son is not her child. She has no responsibility to watch him at all. He is 3 years old. It is your job to watch him. What if she had something dangerous in her purse? Sharp keys he could cut himself with. Medications, coins he could eat. Would you let your child get injured to teach her a lesson? To sum up, you're the a-hole 100%. You're the a-hole for a few reasons. Just because your sister is family does not mean that she should be a free babysitter. If you want supervision for your son, you have 3 choices. Do it yourself, pay her to do it, or pay someone on the outside. You're teaching your son that it is okay to be destructive of other people's property just because you can't be bothered to step up and parent him. Set boundaries. After reading this, I'm thankful that the only thing he got into was your sister's purse and not the chemicals underneath the cupboard or in a medicine cabinet. By not watching him and paying attention to what he's getting into, you risk him being seriously injured or poisoned, depending on what he happens to be doing that day. How long would it take you to notice? Make it right. Offer to replace everything that your son destroyed when you weren't watching him, and then offer to pay her to babysit or find someone who will, because obviously you're not willing to. Definitely, you're the a-hole. Either pay for a sitter or watch your kid. I am a work-from-home mom with a 1-year-old and a 4-year-old, and it is hard. Yes, it is, but I set up a designated area with baby gates. It used to be one of those baby fences. The kids' toys and a show. It takes me longer to get work done than if I have a sitter, but my kids are in a safe place and are not destroying things. It is your job as a parent to teach your child to respect other people's property. Neither of my kids touch my purse or the diaper bag, even though it sits within reach of them every day. Why? Because they have been taught to not touch what isn't theirs. Next story. My husband, 26, and I, 25, have this tradition with birthdays. When we met, we both started taking the day off on our birthdays. We usually take this day to have time alone. We have a party or something with friends another day. And we drive to another city and explore this city. We often try out new restaurants on this day or go to the spa. We both are very involved in our work, so it's not often time for us to be alone and stress-free. At the end of last year, I had some medical stuff going on and I had a lot of pain, so I told my husband how I'm looking forward to my birthday, which was yesterday. He agreed and also admitted that he had very little time due to his work and that he wants to change that. The day before my birthday, he told me that he had forgotten to take a day off. He said that he now has 2 meetings he can't change and it's not possible for him to not attend. I was really sad, but I thought that we still had the evening. I booked some movie tickets and told him that. He said that we will go to a restaurant before and that it will be fine. I waited for him to come home so we could go, but it's 1 hour away from the movie start and he didn't show up. I called him, but there was no answer. So I called my friends, told them I had 1 ticket free and they agreed to meet me there and that we will go out afterwards. This lightened my mood. When I was going to my car, my husband showed up. It's only 30 minutes before the movie starts. And I asked him how we were supposed to have dinner and why he was so late. He didn't say sorry and we argued. I just left him there and he stayed home. Today he said that I act like a spoiled brat and that birthdays aren't so important. He takes this year the whole week off when it's his birthday, and we have this tradition to explore and eat at a restaurant since we've known each other. My friend supported me, but thought that I was too harsh, and he was really pissed. Edit. In our country, you can take a minimum of 28 days off, and by his job, it's 31 days, so it's not a problem to take 1 day off. And I know that birthdays aren't that important and that we aren't children anymore, but it's about the effort thing and our tradition that made my heart heavy and the reason I got so angry. Not the a-hole. It's not as much about your birthday, but more about the blatant disrespect and the way your husband handled it. You made plans, he stood you up. No phone call, no text to say if he was late or even coming at all, and he didn't apologize. I'm glad you still went to the movies with your friend, and I hope it ended up being a fun birthday at the moment. Your husband could have communicated that he was running late, but he didn't, and he didn't respond to you. You took action to save the last few hours of your birthday, and your husband is pouting. He should have been apologizing all over the place and trying to make it up to you, but instead, he is pouting and digging in, telling you that birthdays aren't important, or whatever, when you say he takes a whole week to celebrate his. OP, I'm so very sorry, not the a-hole.